Hey everybody, welcome back to Sounds Like a Drum. We are at Cadence Independent Media, and in episode 45 today, we're going to talk about textured heads for brush playing. We've gotten a lot of questions about brushes. I've been playing a lot of brushes. Here we go. So first things first, why texture a drum head in the first place? Well, it's to imitate the texture of a leather, calfskin, whatever, vintage head. If you have a leather jacket or a leather wallet, you know that they're not smooth like glass or like a plastic head is if it's not coated. And in addition to changing the tone of the head a little bit to have that material on there, initially, it's my understanding that it had to do with playing brushes because there was a lot of brush playing going on back then. And you needed to have some kind of resistance to get the volume out of the drum when you're doing swishy stuff with the brushes on the head, as opposed to just like striking it straight up and down with a stick or whatever implement. Initially, coated heads, it was all the same coating. There wasn't anything to imitate something closer to a calf head, and people sort of started playing less brushes on popular music into the 60s, 70s, 80s. It was more of a sticks kind of thing. And the idea of brush playing never really fell out of favor, but I feel like companies weren't that attuned into it until they realized that people were wanting those dark sounds again and also wanted to play brushes more on something that resembled, looked like, felt like calf. Every company makes something like that. Remo has theirs, Evans has theirs. The idea that we're going for today is to sort of just do a quick pass through a bunch of different sorts of coating with brushes to give you an idea of what might work for you. For instance, sometimes a faux calf head is not loud enough for the brush playing that I'm doing, especially if it's a loud gig and the drums aren't mic'd. I actually need real scratchy coating. And then at other times, especially if your brushes are also new, the wires are a little bit scratchier on the end. And if you lay brand new brushes on a brand new coated head, it is awful. Rather than changing the heads on the single drum, we're just going to run through a bunch of different drums because ultimately for the swishy sound, the difference is not that big from drum to drum. And we're going to do wires off because that will kind of bring out the tone a little bit more. Having the wires on when you're playing lateral stuff with brushes squashes the tone a little bit. And I prefer it with them off. Not a lot to say about this. It's a coated head, 10 mil, 1 ply, and it's also probably the sound that most of us are used to from playing brushes. Next up is coated head number 2. This is a UV1. This is also 10 mil coated head. However, this coating is not sprayed on, it's screen printed and then UV treated, so it's tougher. And this results in a head that sounds new longer, particularly with brushes. It doesn't have quite the same amount of wear on the batter from playing with sticks. So this is going to sound a little bit louder, at least it does to me, than the last head, but if that G1 had been brand new out of the box, it's a little bit crispier and there's a little more resistance to the brushes. So as you can hear, there's a fair amount of texture there. There's not a lot of resistance to the tips of the brushes on these, which is why if I'm going to do a coated head thing and it's brand new, this is more the choice. But overall, I find this to be a little bit of a darker brush sound in general. All right, number 3 is a Calftone. This is a brand new Calftone, and you'll see right out of the box, it is a lot darker, and there is very little resistance in the texture when you actually switch the brushes on it, which is cool. It feels a little weird if you've never used this type of head before, like a fiber scanner or the similar sort of laminated head, because that feeling of the coating slowing you down and pushing against it is almost nil. I really like these a lot. They're great. You've heard in the other videos, they sound good with sticks. They sound great with brushes. I like that there's a little less overtone involved. There's still some resistance to the brushes, but they actually feel a little faster, especially if you're doing quick, swishy stuff. And if you can get used to the feel of it with your brushes, it's pretty great. Next up is the Kentville Kangaroo head. This is sort of the coolest calfish thing around right now. I really like them a lot, and I am not endorsed by them. I just really like to use them. And this is going a little bit further in the darkness direction and a lot further in the dryness direction and like lack of overtones, which is what's so cool about these. It's a nice amount of resistance. It's also a natural thing, so like some spots are a little bit smoother sounding than others, and you have to kind of like work with that a little bit. But overall, it's a beautiful sound. It's definitely, in my opinion, the jam for brushes, and particularly awesome in the recording studio if you're trying to do anything that's kind of darker and warmer and you have to play a lot of brushes, or bundle rods for that matter too. All right, and the surprise sleeper of the bunch is this Evans hybrid batter, which is aramid fiber, and it is frost coated very gently, and it actually sounds awesome with brushes because due to the constructions of these heads, they are very minimal with overtones and very fat at any tuning, as previous videos have demonstrated. Yeah, that's a super fun head. It's crazy. Yeah, I've actually never played brushes on one of these before. I had no idea what that was going to sound like. And it's pretty cool because the coating is super thin and they're actually really forgiving for brush playing, which is crazy. It's super important to note, though, that with these heads, you have to be careful about tuning them on wood drums because this material does not give the way that plastic does. And you can actually jack up your bearing edges a little bit if you try to go like sky high with them on a wood drum. So we put it on this DW edge snare that is definitely not wood on the edges. So hopefully this has been helpful. Of course, with your drum and your brushes and your hands, your results may vary, but hopefully this gives you some insight into making choices based on where you're playing, the music that you're playing, the volume threshold that it's going to be, those sorts of things, so that you can get the best sound and be easy on yourself too, and not be having to like hold back if it's too loud or dig in really hard and get sore if it's not loud enough. Other factors can influence this too. A lot of times I do the wallet trick on drums when I'm playing brushes, or the rag at the edge of the head also, because that will affect the head in different ways. And so just really try all these things out if you can. At the very least, give yourself a couple of options and educate yourself about these sounds, because right now there's a lot of music to be made with brushes that's not jazz. And it's just a great thing to have in your arsenal, along with different sounds out of the drum itself. And as usual, please like, comment, and subscribe. Tell us your brush stories, and let us know if you tried out any of these things and how they worked out for you.